I was starting to tell you that it's funny that you bring that up because just today I came up with an idea that's not nearly as good as that or fascinating, but I still think it's a decent idea. My series was going to be called "Is This the Year?" question mark. So, for example, is this the year Miami wins its first ACC championship game?
Yes, it is.
Is this the year? Fill in the blank. I came up with about 20 of them. Is this the year Notre Dame wins its first major bowl since 1994?
Wait. Excuse me?
Notre Dame has not won a major bowl game since 1994, the 94 Cotton Bowl. They've lost all of them.
So why do they get like shoved down our throat so much?
Yeah, they've gotten whipped by a lot of teams in that 25, 30 years.
I just
Yeah, they're like 0-11 in BCS in New Year's Six bowl games.
but we got to deal with them every year. What you need to say is if all the college football people that be at Bay make these folks join the conference.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna get into that.
They
Even though I
should.
understand, yes, being independent, it's cool. If the teams that were on their schedule were better, I mean, USC's been down for a bit, Stanford's been down for a bit, Miami's been a little up and down. So if they were playing the teams while they were good, you could argue Notre Dame would have the hardest schedule in college football because they do go all over. It's been some really good games, but yeah, yeah. And okay, all right. Since we got time here, which conference, because I don't know if your answer would be different, which conference would you want Notre Dame to join and your reasons why? And then which conference do you think would make more sense? Maybe it's the same answer for Notre Dame to join, in your opinion.
Well, I believe that if Notre Dame does join a conference, they're going to join the ACC. They
Right.
already have an agreement with the ACC in football. They're already joined in every other sport. They're not going to rip out all their, unless somebody just throws them so much money, they have to go. You know, they're already tied to the ACC. So I think that's what's going to happen. I believe, I don't think I'm biased on this point. Notre Dame playing the only school that they have any history with in the ACC is Miami because of what happened in the 80s. But other than that, they don't, these games that they play against Wake Forest and Georgia Tech, and I don't get it. Notre Dame, before they started doing all this with the ACC, they had 50 and 60 and 70-year series in a row with Purdue, Michigan State, and Michigan. And they're sitting right in the middle of Indiana. They belong in the Big Ten.
Yep.
They're a Big Ten football team.
Yeah. I think it makes blunt. I mean, especially from their style of play, a 3-4
Yeah.
scheme built from the inside out. Really good offensive lines and tight ends. That's Big Ten ball, if you ask me. Only other thing that would be different is SEC, and they definitely ain't going to the SEC. I don't think they would fit. Wouldn't make any sense. Um, but yeah, I think they would definitely join the ACC, and hopefully they would go to the Atlantic because if they came to the Coastal, I mean, under this new regime, let's do it. Let's go at it toe to toe. But I think it would be great if they gave the Atlantic another really good team, and it would be them and Clemson going toe to toe for the ACC for the SEC Atlantic championship, and then they could just bring West Virginia with them, and then West Virginia could join the Coastal. And now I think college football is a little bit more aligned because West Virginia having traveled 1,000 miles to their nearest game just it just doesn't make any sense. But if they were in the Virginia, the Coastal on that side battling, you bring back Tech, you bring back them in Pitt, you bring back them in UVA, you bring back them in Miami, them in Louisville. It just makes a lot more sense to have that on.
I want to read Anthony's question because he is just really wants us to address this. So, Anthony, we went through this. You might have missed it about the Saban situation. So he says, Mark, what if Nick Saban was successful in the NFL as a head coach? Who do you think would become the current head coach up to this point and would have been dominating? Well, for one thing, most likely Alabama would have been through, even if they would have been good coaches, how many coaches have been around for the last 15 years? Very few. So most likely they would have had about 3 head coaches for one thing.
Right.
So who knows at this point where they would be.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't looked into it, but I know from hearing different people talk about the subject that Rich Rodriguez was high on their list. And he had a great tenure at West Virginia, but he bombed at Michigan. So I don't know what he would have done at Bama. Because Bama was nowhere close to what they are now then.
Right.
They had
I mean,
just
they
lost
had a bunch of what, 4 and 8 and 5 and 7 seasons in
they
there.
had a lot of like back and forth. Like they had a 3 and 9. They had like Mike Shula in 05, only 2 years before Saban went 10 and 2 and won the Cotton Bowl. They were like all over the place for about 7 or 8 years.
And then now they're just
Yeah.
a juggernaut.
Can you imagine Alabama losing to wasn't La Tech, it was somebody
UNL
else from
Monroe.
Louisiana. Monroe. Yeah.
But that was under Saban. That was his first year.
Yeah, that's crazy. Think about it now. Yeah.
And at home too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, and then that's where, like I said, the what if thing, and I know a lot of big people are into the college football realignment conversation because that's happening back and forth. Yeah, man, y'all go ahead and hit that like button if you haven't already, man. A 2-hour live out of me and Mark. We haven't done this ever. So this was really cool. I don't have much to do. I could keep going, but I obviously know Mark is tired. He's been working all day. But
no, it's a fun conversation.
It's really cool, man. And it's one of those things that I get excited for because you could also make it so specific to these fan bases. I mean, you got over 30 channels that things could really go. I mean, one of the biggest ones, I know a lot of people are going to not like me for saying this, but what if Tallahassee had a kicker? You know, like imagine how different everyone is viewed, even their because the people they played Miami. What if Bobby Bowden probably has about 3 or 4 national championships because they were arguably the best team, if not one of the best teams. And then they just couldn't get over the Miami hump for a bit. What if they had a kicker?
That's the school that for about 15 years would have benefited the most from a playoff.
Yeah, they would have always been in it, huh?
Pretty much. Yeah, I know that they've got that streak of Final Four finishes, like top 4 finishes. But what gets lost there is there are a few seasons that they only finished in the top 4 because they won their bowl game to get them into the top 4. So they wouldn't have necessarily been there when the playoff was selected. But yeah, they would have been in the playoffs a ton of times between, for that 15 years or so. Yep.
I think that's the biggest juggernaut answer right there is what if since 1960, especially because someone like you could go down that AP and you could probably even remember who were the Final Four teams in 1961. I don't know. I can't tell you that. But especially because back then you didn't have an actual national championship game. It was just based on after all the bowls who had the most points, right?
It was just an AP and UPI poll. Yeah. That's all it was. Who would have wanted a playoff?
Flip it on its head. What if the BCS still existed?
Yeah.
To this day, how funny would that would be crazy? Because I mean, a couple of those Alabama national championships aren't in existence because if they didn't win the SEC and didn't even play in the playoffs, just like what was that year? 18? They didn't win the SEC.
Yeah, 17.
Yeah, they didn't play in the SEC championship, but they still made the playoffs as a 4th seed. You know, it can create, it can get real fancy.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the biggest ones would be Oregon. I think Oregon's would take off. What if Oregon beat it? What if they beat Auburn? What if they beat Ohio State in the national championship? You do like a 2 or 3 year pattern after that. But yeah, dude, what if series? I'm definitely going to start it on the Miami channel
Yeah, I look
for the
forward to that.
because I
I'll
mean it
check
could.
those out.
I don't even know if it'll be top 5. It may turn out to be top 10, 15 once you start opening that Pandora's box. Because,
Mm-hmm.
but like you said, I think what you're going to have to do is put out a a video that explains these are the rules for the Mark Rogers
Yeah.
TV What If series. Before you hit the comment section with, oh, you forgot about this guy. What if Purdue ends up beating this because they made the kick? Whatever. We're going to focus on 3 major points from this season for you. For me, it's probably going to be outcome of games. Just like I said, the Ohio State, the fumble that wasn't a fumble against Notre Dame, certain coaches staying. That'll be what I focus on. But for you, as much of a big, broader conversation, it would be bomb diggity, man.